so here we have the Landmine University movements. You see me working a lot of this rotational intent. We want to be on our toes as much as we can, and we want to connect that toe loading position with our lateral slings and spinal engine driven or core driven movement. So you'll see here that as I drive my elbow down into my hip, I'm also driving my hip up into my elbow to feel my lats, obliques, and glutes. I'm feeling my calves like crazy because I'm driving from the ground up. So you'll see here as my right side goes up, my left side drives down. We're trying to hit what's called that landmark. So that elbow and hip position is the landmark, and we want to be sure to use that down on the right side, up on the left side, or vice versa, using the landmark in the catch and in the press in order to stabilize the weight, no matter how we're moving it. This is the principle of the Landmine University core-driven movements. So you'll see here we're adding that aspect of locomotion now, still staying on the toes, driving through the hip, and driving down into that lat, glute, and oblique as I stabilize the weight with each step. You want to be sure to control that weight to your center line rather than trying to drive it across your body or to the side, unless you're doing that on purpose. Now here you'll see I'm doing that coiled lunge and step on each side, using that coil position, using that landmark position to stabilize the weight as I come up and down. This is a more isolated exercise to establish that strong landmark position. And then here you'll see I'm doing it from that hang clean or sort of deadlift position, what's becoming a split lunge and will eventually become a split snatch movement or a split clean jerk type movement. So it's important that we're establishing that landmark. By principle, we're using that coiling movement to drive the weight up and around into that landmark position. Feel those muscles stabilizing in our spinal engine and using the balls of your feet. We don't want to get flat-footed here. The whole point here is forward intent and driving the weight forward, up, and out as if we were playing on the field of sport or court play. Here we have that split press. As we drop down into that catch position, we want to get more length and strength with each press. So you can use this as a mobility movement with less weight in order to feel more length and that stretch through that long side and down into that short side. Get really familiar with using that spinal engine to stabilize the weight. Then here we have that split, clean, and jerk, pulling up from that deadlift position, splitting the feet every time. Every time we move the bar, we move the feet. So you'll see here we start off in that opposite arm, opposite leg position. Then we split those feet as we move. Every time that bar moves from one side to the other, we're switching that foot position in order to maintain that momentum and that fluidity of movement. So you'll see the moment I start moving the weight, I'm up on the balls of my feet and switching that stance every time. Hitting that landmark is absolutely critical to stabilizing the weight, especially as we move with more speed, especially as the weight gets heavier. We need to establish those coil and landmark positions in order to move with better stability and better overall function. This is a great way of developing athletic power and modifying your Olympic lifts. You'll see that I'm using different drop positions and different patterns to come down to reload for these snatches here. But this snatch right here is a very explosive exercise with linear intent, with forward intent, but we have that rotational aspect, that spiraling aspect to it that really teaches us to drive force up, out, and forward through whatever we're working against. Then here you'll see that we're working on that switch at the top position with the hands. I lock that weight out at the top, jump, switch my hands quickly, hit that landmark to stabilize and control, and then go back down into those catching movements. We want to develop that rhythm for a 1, 2, 3, 4 count in order to keep ourselves under control throughout the movements, and this is Landmine University.